Hey everyone, it's late winter here. We're about a week and a half away from official springtime. Tonight we changed the clocks, we spring ahead. Tomorrow will be daylight savings time, and I'm looking forward to that. So around here it's feeling like springtime, daylight savings time, but again around here it's maple time. Come on. So for the past 35 years, we've been tapping maples out on this property and making maple syrup. But this year decided to do something different and take the year off. We've got a lot of other things going on, and making maple syrup is a time and labor intensive endeavor, and it's just not going to work out for us this year. But we always make enough to last us through the year and give a little extra away as gifts and that kind of thing. But I just couldn't let the season pass without tapping a maple or two and just enjoying what nature is going to give us a little bit. So why don't we do that? We'll do something a little bit different, something a little non-traditional, and then show you something that's pretty traditional as well. And then we'll enjoy the flavor of maple. So before we get going and make our own tap, I wanted to show you what some traditional maple taps look like. Here's a traditional one. This end goes into the tree and the bucket hangs off the end, and this little nub here keeps the bucket from sliding off. So that's one kind. This is another kind here. It's an aluminum one. Again, this end gets put in the tree, sap comes out here, and this is what holds the bucket on. And you need different lids for these different types of things to put on the bucket. But that's basically the two types that we use here. So here we have some staghorn sumac. And the beauty of staghorn sumac is that it has a very, very soft pith. So you can hollow it out fairly easily. And that's what we're going to use to make a spigot or a spile to tap a maple with today. And this stuff grows kind of weedy. You can find it on the edges of fields, along the road. It's not too difficult to find. You can identify it easily enough because it has on its twigs and branches a soft velvety sort of feel to it. And also in the fall it has bright red berries, and you can sort of see them dried up here. They do dry up. So we're going to take a piece of this and we'll make a spigot out of it. Staghorn sumac. So I have my handy dandy little saw here, and we're just going to take a piece that looks pretty good. Take more than we need. So that we can make sure that we have a piece that will fit into the holes that we make in the maple properly. So let's just take one more here. It's pretty brittle stuff. Let's go find a maple. So here's our maple. We're going to tap this maple right here. And I guess before we tap a maple, we need to know what it looks like. So I picked up these along the way. Maples are pretty easy to find around here, and they're readily identifiable because there are only two trees of note around here that have opposite branching. Most trees you'll find have alternate branches. The twigs come off the branch in an alternating pattern. So maple and ash are the only two trees with opposite branching. So they're pretty easy to find overall. And this is a red maple. Red maple has red on it someplace all the time, every time of the year. This is a bright red branch right now. I don't know if you can tell that in the camera. And this is a sugar maple. Less red on it this time of year. In fact, it's quite brown. But the buds are a little bit different. I don't know if you can tell from here, but these are a little bit more bulbous than the terminal bud on the sugar maple. But again, they both have opposite branching, so it's easy to tell. An ash will have a fairly large bud on it. Very different from maples, so they're quite easy to tell apart. So this is our maple. We're going to put a hole in it, but first I think we need to make a tap for it before we drill a hole. So let's do that. So here are the staghorn sumac branches, and you will notice that they do look like deer antlers. So we have a drill bit that we're going to use to drill a hole with. So we want to make sure that our sumac branch is at least the thickness of the diameter of the drill bit. So it looks like that's going to do it right there. So let's put that aside, and why don't we break this off down here. It's pretty simple to do. And then we'll make a nice clean cut on the end of it. My Swiss Army knife. Don't go anywhere without it. And the same on this end. There we go. And you probably can't see it, but it's got a nice soft pith in it. And we could just take a knife and start reaming it out a little bit. Just like that. And we're going to continue reaming it until we get a channel all the way through it. So I brought a tool just for that purpose. This is simply a skewer. Okay, that should do it. I can see through it. Let's drill a hole. So I have a brace and a bit here. This is what we'll use to drill our hole. And what I like to do is I like to keep it on the south side because the sun will warm it up, warm up the tree and get it thawed out first thing in the morning, earlier than on the north side where the sun doesn't hit it. To make sap flow, you need freezing nights and warm days in the 40s. Preferably no wind. It's a little breezy today. I don't know how much sap will get, and probably won't be running right now, but this tree has historically been very, very good to us. So I also like to find where there's a big root coming out of the tree or a big branch right up above it. In this case, we've got a nice root coming out here on the south side. I think that we'll tap it right in here. Clean out the hole real good. There. That's all there is to that. Now we'll take our tap here, our spigot, and boy, that's going to fit pretty good. I'm just going to whittle it down just a whisker. Take some of the bark off it right here. And it's got a really milky white, creamy wood to it. Speaking of creamy, it is wet, but you see how just bright white, green, pretty that is. Yeah, so that's going to fit like a cork into that hole and seal it off a little bit so we don't get any leakage out of it. Now I made this long. Normally you hang the tap or the bucket right off the tap, but in this case we're just going to put the bucket on the ground below it. I've made it plenty long so that we can kind of direct any sap that flows right down into a bucket down below. So let's just push this in here, just like that. That's good, just like that. So we're going to let that go. And I have a bucket. It's just really an old plastic bucket. It's actually a maple bucket. It's got a hole in it. And normally you would hang it on the tree like this. But we're just going to put it on the bottom, get some snow in it. I'll take that out because that doesn't help us at all. And we'll just put it down here. And wait for the sap to start dripping. So there it is. So this is a traditional setup. You can see with the cover on it. We'll take the cover off. And you can see that spigot that we saw earlier. This tree is running nicely this morning. It's got a good start on it. And if you listen carefully, you can hear the sound of the sap hitting the bottom of the bucket, which is music to our ears this time of year. It's like hearing peepers. Well, there it is. Nice lemon ginger tea, sweetened with maple sap. Doesn't get much better than that. Oh yeah. Now normally we'd collect this sap and we'd boil it down and turn it into maple syrup. Takes about 40 gallons or so of sap to make a gallon of syrup. Today we've got about, well, maybe between the two taps, we've got maybe 2 quarts going, so you can see we have a ways to go. So I'm just going to enjoy the sap in my tea, and it's good sap. So that's it. Thanks for coming by today. Enjoyed the company, and don't forget to get outside, especially on a day like this. Here's to spring, here's to daylight savings time, here's to maple.